Yet now we have to get a reality check here. You hadn't contacted the McMahons or anything. There was a total war between the McMahon family and Bruno. Can anyone shut Bruno up from saying this and saying that? But yet, in recent months, we understand that you met with McMahon's lawyers, and now you had many times told me, you said, I wouldn't meet with those guys, I wouldn't talk to those guys. And when I read that, I went, Bruno, what? So what tell us
what happened was that the McMahon's lawyer called my attorney. My attorney's name is Marty Lazzaro, and he said to him that Jim Ross wanted to meet with me. Jim Ross wanted to talk to me.
Right, he's the director of talent relations. And
I didn't even know what his title was because I totally blocked wrestling out. I just wasn't, you know. And when he wanted to meet with me, I said to Marty, well, what about? He says, he wants to talk to you. He says, Bruno, he says, and let's meet with him. He says, because he speaks very highly of you. He said, and he thinks that you and he always got along well. And he said, so, you know, I said, yeah, I don't mind. This is just going to be Jim Ross and McMahon's lawyer, McDivitt. He said, yeah. I said, fine. So we met, and Ross said, he says, I'm not here to resolve any of the issues with you and McMahon, but I want to be here to see if there's any way we can open that door a little bit in some kind of negotiations concerning what. And he says, you know, Bruno, he says, it's a shame for what you were to this business. He says, there's so much out there. He said, we're coming out with something called 24/7. Yes. He says, so we're going to show a lot of the old-time things, and we'd like to have you to do the commentating on your matches and what have you. He says, we would like to do a DVD of putting a bunch of matches of you that we'd like to show around the world. He said, we would like to do video games that you'd be involved in. We would like to do a renewal of the book, redo the book of you, and do all this and that. He says, all I ask, he says, is that if you can't resolve the issues with McMahon, he says, but leave yourself open for this, because this is something that can be very good for you. And he says, and it's of course good for the organization. Sure. And he says, I'll tell you what, he says, please think about it. And I said, okay. I said, Jim, that's fair enough. We'll think about it. I says, in the meantime, I said, what do you want, where do we go from here? What is it that you want? My lawyer said, why don't you get together with McMahon or whatever and put on paper what exactly it is that you folks have in mind that you want to do concerning Bruno, and then let me look at it and see if it's something that can possibly be worked out. Okay. Well, we never got anything from them. So what happened then was they talked on the phone, my lawyer and McMahon's lawyer, concerning this, and nothing was happening. Meanwhile, my lawyer had let McMahon's lawyer know that we were going to Europe. We were going to my town because of this documentary that we're shooting on my life. They wanted to hit the actual place where we hid from the Nazis. They wanted to show the statue that they built in my honor in my town, and the sports facility that they built, and the home that my mom and dad built, which they made a landmark out of. Right. We wanted to catch all this stuff on film along with my story that they were going to do. So what happened while we were in Europe, McDivitt, I believe, called Marty Lazzaro and said, listen, I found out from the arena that when you guys come back, you're going to do a shooting at the arena for this for your life story. Yeah, that they need to do in the ring. He says, for God's sake, says, you guys are going to be there anyway. He says, we're going to be there to shoot Raw. You know, he says, why can't we meet over there? Just be Vince and myself, meaning him, McDivitt, and you and Bruno. He says, well, I'll talk to Bruno, what's the name, Marty said. So we were in Rome at this time. We were just making our way to my neck of the mountains in Abruzzi. And he said to me, Bruno, he says, I talked to Jerry McDivitt. He says, we're going to be at the arena. He says, all he said is, let's meet, the four of us, me, you, and Vince and McDivitt. He says, and to a follow-up to what took place. I said, well, the follow-up was they were supposed to send you some. They never did. He says, I know. He says, but maybe this is the follow-up. He says, look, nobody has to do a thing